Davy Killer. I am See Me No More.
In the early morning light of Sierra Leone, a father gently wakes his son for school, but the boy is still half asleep and complains that the English boys never attend every day. His father patiently helps him into his uniform and reminds him that education could one day make him a doctor, while nearby his mother and siblings smile warmly at their morning routine. Solomon is a fisherman, and taking his son to school is the part of the day he loves most. After school, his son Dia proudly talks about what he learned, saying their country could be a paradise if it were not destroyed by civil war. Solomon listens proudly and jokes that maybe Dia should come fishing with him tomorrow. But Dia refuses, making Solomon laugh and ask if he now wants to go to school every day. The two walk home happily, unaware that their peaceful life is about to collapse. Suddenly, loud music echoes across the fields as pickup trucks filled with armed rebels race toward the village. Solomon immediately tells Dia to hide before rushing back to save his family. The rebels storm the village and shoot at everyone in sight, while Solomon risks his own life to break into their hut and pull his family to safety during the chaos. But while escaping, Solomon is captured by the rebels, who celebrate their violence and begin cutting off villagers' hands, claiming that without hands there can be no voting. Solomon survives only because Captain Poison notices his strong body and sends him to work in a diamond mine. At the mine, prisoners dig under the watch of young soldiers, while Captain Poison confidently claims that their rebel group is the only hope for a country destroyed by a corrupt government serving foreign interests. His words sound noble, but his actions prove the opposite.
IUF is fighting for Sierra Leone! Stop!
When he notices a man hiding a diamond in his mouth, he kills him immediately to set an example, making it clear that diamonds matter more to them than human lives. Far away at the UN, officials argue about how to stop the illegal diamond trade that is fueling the civil war, as every valuable resource in Africa, oil, gold, ivory, and now diamonds, only brings more violence and bloodshed. Rebels use these resources to buy weapons, while wealthy countries continue feeding the cycle through demand. Since nearly 2/3 of the world's diamonds are bought by the richest nations, the Secretary General urges countries not to support illegal diamonds, even if they make up less than 15% of the market, directing his message especially toward the biggest company in the industry, Van de Kopp. Meanwhile, in another part of the country, a small plane lands in rebel territory, and a smuggler named Danny Archer steps out, telling the pilot to leave him alone with the RUF. He asks for Commander Zero, but instead meets a man calling himself Commander Rambo, wearing bright red glasses and acting like a movie character. Danny quickly realizes the man is pretending to be dangerous, so he calmly hands over his gun, raises his hands, and walks past him without fear. He eventually meets Commander Zero, who is watching television, and receives a bag of diamonds in exchange for weapons. However, Danny notices there are fewer diamonds than agreed upon, so he pressures Zero by reminding him that he can easily sell weapons to the government instead. After a tense moment, Zero gives him more rare diamonds and only asks Danny to bring him a satellite TV next time. Later, Danny leaves with a group of goat herders and their goats, hoping to escape quietly, but they accidentally run into government soldiers who do not believe his claim that he is a National Geographic photographer. The soldiers search the goats and discover diamonds hidden under one of the packs, so Danny is arrested for smuggling. He tries to bribe the soldiers and calmly explains that he works closely with Colonel Coetzee, an important man in a private military company supporting the government, but the soldier refuses to be corrupted and arrests him anyway. Back at the diamond mine, Solomon works in muddy water when he suddenly discovers a huge pink diamond. He freezes in fear because Captain Poison kills anyone caught hiding even a small stone, and a diamond like this could either change his life forever or get him killed instantly. While trying to stay calm, a water pump suddenly explodes and sends water everywhere, allowing Solomon to secretly hide the diamond between his toes and ask permission to step away. The guards barely notice him, but Captain Poison suddenly appears and searches him carefully, though luckily he finds nothing. Later, when Solomon quietly removes the diamond from between his toes to clean the mud off it, Captain Poison appears again and points a gun at his head. But before anything can happen, government soldiers suddenly attack the mine. Explosions shake the ground, and Captain Poison is wounded in the attack. So Solomon quickly buries the diamond before he is captured with the other workers. This is how Solomon and Danny end up in the same government prison in Freetown. Inside the cell, the injured Captain Poison notices Solomon and starts screaming about the diamond. But Solomon quickly removes his shirt and shouts that he has nothing. Their argument catches the attention of everyone nearby, including Danny, who quietly listens and learns Solomon's full name. Not long after, Danny is released from prison because of his connections, and as soon as he leaves, his pilot warns him that people in London already know he has been smuggling diamonds for Van de Kopp. Danny does not seem worried, and instead tells his pilot to focus on getting Solomon released. Later, back at his apartment, Danny removes a hidden diamond from inside a tooth cap and plans to sell it quietly, not realizing that trouble is already following him. As he leaves, a soldier named Cordell, who works for Colonel Coetzee, breaks into Danny's room searching for diamonds. Meanwhile, Danny's pilot succeeds in getting Solomon released and secretly gives him a stack of money. Solomon takes it while confused about why a stranger would help him, but he keeps the money anyway. Across the city, tension continues to rise after news spreads that RUF forces have taken control of the city of Marampa, only 50 miles away from Freetown. Danny later sells his diamond and enters a bar, where he pays the bartender to get him another gun and quietly asks how soon the rebels might reach the capital. Before he gets an answer, he notices a woman nearby and sits beside her. Her name is Maddie Bowen, a journalist investigating the blood diamond trade. She already knows who Danny is, though he does not realize it yet. At first, Danny speaks smoothly and explains the country's conflict like a teacher. But when Maddie starts asking sharper questions, he quickly realizes she is a reporter. Feeling cornered, Danny angrily leaves the bar, but Maddie follows him outside and explains that Sierra Leone officially exports no diamonds, while neighboring Liberia somehow earns billions from diamonds, despite barely having any mines. Her questions get dangerously close to Danny's secret work, so he refuses to answer her. When Danny finally returns home, he discovers that his apartment has been completely destroyed, and moments later, he runs into Cordell. Cordell and Danny were once partners under Colonel Coetzee, but now Cordell comes to intimidate him. Danny calmly asks for a cigarette, then suddenly punches him and releases all the anger building inside him since the morning. On the other side of the city, Solomon walks through crowded refugee camps, desperately searching for his wife and children. But his hope slowly disappears when he realizes they are nowhere to be found. Worse still, he has no idea that his son Dia has already been taken by the RUF. After a tense discussion with Mr. Simmons, the deputy of Van de Kopp, about the large pink diamond, Danny returns to South Africa. But the moment he lands, Colonel Coetzee's men capture him and bring him directly to the colonel. Coetzee explains that the rebels have regained control of the diamond mines and that his private military company has now been hired by the Sierra Leone government to destroy them. Danny realizes the colonel is secretly working with both sides by supplying weapons to the rebels while also supporting the government. The colonel immediately asks about the pink diamond and orders Danny to sell it directly to him instead of sending it through London. When Danny hesitates, the colonel reminds him of his difficult childhood, explaining that Danny survived without parents only because the colonel raised and trained him as a soldier, and that his smuggling career also began under his guidance. Danny insists that if he really had the diamond, he would have already disappeared, but the colonel only smiles and places red soil into Danny's hand, saying the land is stained with the blood of those who fought for it, reminding him that he will never truly escape this place. The next day, Danny follows Solomon through the streets and offers him a deal, but Solomon refuses because he fears talking about the diamond could endanger his family, then runs away. He later works quietly as a hotel bellman in Freetown while holding on to hope that his wife and children are still alive somewhere. Meanwhile, Dia is trapped in a completely different world as the RUF trains him to become a child soldier by destroying every part of his old identity. The rebels tell the children that their parents are weak and obey white people, and that only revolution can save the country. Blindfolded, the children are forced to shoot prisoners to harden their hearts, and Dia obeys the order to fire the gun. Though the weight of what he did stays with him long after the others stop cheering. Later that night, Captain Poison visits him. He comforts Dia with soft lies, calling him brave and strong, guiding him toward violence.
Boss man.
Back in Freetown, the bartender quietly hands Danny the gun he requested. He warns that RUF fighters have already begun slipping into the city and tells Danny to get out while he still can. Danny asks if the bartender plans to run too, but the man only shrugs. This is his country. There is nowhere else to go. Danny heads toward the dance floor, where Maddie stands among the music and lights. She looks relaxed, but as soon as they dance, she brings up her work again, questioning him about smuggling routes. Danny pulls back, frustrated that she is still chasing a story. When he returns to the bar, she follows, and their conversation turns sharp. Danny accuses her of being part of the same machine she criticizes, saying that most diamonds are bought by American women chasing romantic stories. Maddie pushes back, arguing that not everyone wants diamonds, and that Danny is the one directly tied to people dying for them. Neither of them gets what they want, and the night ends with nothing but tension between them. The next morning, the city grows tense as RUF fighters close in. Government soldiers move nervously through the streets, preparing for a battle they know they can't avoid. Solomon notices the shift immediately and gets ready to flee, but Danny finds him again before he can slip away. Danny keeps pressing him to make a deal, promising a fair price and protection in return for the diamond. Their argument continues right in the middle of the road, until RUF trucks roll into town. Danny pulls Solomon with him, still trying to negotiate even as they dodge bullets. When Solomon finally agrees, Danny leads him through collapsing alleys and burning homes. Crowds panic around them. Pushing in every direction as the rebels storm deeper into the city. Using his soldier instincts, Danny fires back just enough to clear a path. They slip inside a house where terrified civilians hide in silence. Outside, the fighting grows louder until government troops surrender. They receive no mercy. Child soldiers step forward and shoot them one by one. By nightfall, the city has fallen. Danny and Solomon creep back out into the ruined streets. Fires burn slowly. Bodies lie everywhere. Even the kind bartender who warned them is now gone. At dawn, they reach a bridge controlled by RUF fighters. With no other option, they disguise themselves, Danny pretending to be a captured prisoner, while Solomon acts like a rebel escorting him. Once close enough, Danny kills the guards without hesitation and clears the way. Solomon is shaken by how calmly he does it, realizing this is the world Danny grew up in. After crossing the bridge, they finally reach a government-controlled refugee camp. Danny tries to get inside so he can contact his pilot using a satellite phone, but the guards block him immediately. As he argues, a journalist steps out. Danny politely asks him if he knows Maddie Bowen. By chance, he does, and he agrees to bring her. Hours later, Maddie arrives. Danny pulls her aside, quietly offering her the smuggling route she has been chasing in exchange for help finding Solomon's family through the UNHCR database. They both understand they're using each other, but it's the only way forward. Maddie takes them to one of the largest refugee camps in Africa, located across the border in Guinea. She hands the list of Solomon's family names to the guards, while Solomon searches through the sea of displaced people. Danny stands back, planning his next move, while Maddie takes photos of the camp. Then Solomon suddenly stops when he sees a familiar face across the fencing. He calls out his wife's name, and she turns around and bursts into tears the moment she recognizes him. After so much fear and uncertainty, they finally reunite, reaching for each other through the wire fences. Maddie quietly captures the emotional moment with her camera, knowing how rare moments like this are. But the happiness quickly fades when Solomon's wife tells him that their son Dia is still missing. Fear immediately takes over Solomon, and his emotions spiral until the guards calm him down.
They'll shoot you, huh? They'll shoot you!
Maddie gently explains that his family cannot leave the camp until the civil war ends because the authorities fear that rebels may be hiding among the refugees. When they return to the military base, Danny studies maps and plans while Solomon sits alone, worrying about his son. Not knowing that Dia is already rising quickly within the RUF ranks and is no longer just a frightened child, but a trained fighter helping destroy villages under rebel control. Danny notices the pain on Solomon's face and quietly walks away to find Maddie working on an article about the family's suffering. He jokingly criticizes her writing, but Maddie becomes frustrated and admits that stories like Solomon's happen over and over again. She explains that people far away from the war have become numb, even when they see heartbreaking images like starving children beside their dead mothers. She says these tragedies will never end as long as companies like Van de Kopp continue fueling the conflict for profit. Her words affect Danny more deeply than he expected, leaving him speechless. Finally, Danny offers Maddie a deal. If she helps him reach the Kono district, he will give her all the documents and information she needs. He explains how the illegal diamond trade works, saying he transports diamonds from Sierra Leone to Liberia, where they receive fake papers. Then they are sent to India and mixed with legal diamonds before ending up with Van de Kopp. Danny explains that these companies are not only funding rebels, but are also quietly shaping wars so they can buy diamonds as cheaply as possible. Now each of them has a personal reason to go to Kono. Solomon wants to rescue his son, Danny wants to find the rare pink diamond, and Maddie wants evidence strong enough to expose the truth. A few days later, Danny and Solomon pretend to be part of Maddie's news team as cameraman and assistant while they travel toward Kono. And during the trip, Danny quietly watches Maddie with growing interest that he tries to hide. Their quiet ride ends when they come across a wrecked truck blocking the road. Journalists rush out to take photos while injured civilians lie scattered everywhere. But before anyone can help, gunfire suddenly erupts from the trees, and everything falls into chaos. Everyone scrambles back into the vehicles trying to escape, but another ambush attacks them moments later. Their driver is killed, soldiers begin falling around them, and the road quickly turns into a deadly trap. Maddie and Solomon barely manage to duck for cover, while Danny reacts instantly, pushing the dead driver aside and taking control of the vehicle himself. With sharp turns and steady driving, he escapes the rebel trucks until they finally reach a dense banana forest, where the sound of engines fades away and is replaced by rustling leaves. Danny reloads his gun, and the three quietly move deeper into the thick forest, knowing the hardest part is still ahead. The next morning, they arrive at a small village protected by local fighters. The guards relax after Maddie explains that they are journalists, not enemies, and only want to take photographs. Solomon helps translate.
Cheers! That's great. We'll get one with all of us.
And eventually the guards trust them. After taking some pictures together, the fighters lead them to a peaceful home where children are playing freely, making the village feel like a small oasis in the middle of the war. Their leader introduces them to Mr. Benjamin Capanet, a school teacher now caring for children who escaped from the rebels. Many of the children suffer from amputations, but Benjamin patiently teaches them and tries to rebuild their hope little by little. While Solomon joins the children in a football game, Danny sits quietly with Benjamin. The teacher admits that several rebel commanders were once his own students and says they are still afraid of his strict discipline, even after becoming killers. He hopes that one day they will remember the love they were supposed to learn there. Later that night, Maddie finds Danny alone and starts talking to him more gently. Instead of questioning him about diamonds, she asks about his past, and Danny finally opens up. He tells her he was born in Rhodesia, a country that no longer exists, and that when he was 9 years old, his parents were murdered. He was later sent to South Africa and joined the military at 18 under Colonel Coetzee. Danny explains that only later did he realize the wars he fought were never about protecting people, but about oil, ivory, and diamonds. His voice shakes as he talks, and Maddie quietly holds his hand while the two sit together in silence. The next day, Benjamin drives them farther ahead, hoping to guide them safely. But on the road they encounter two young rebels guarding a bridge. Before Benjamin can speak to them, gunfire suddenly erupts and he collapses. Danny has no choice but to drive straight to Colonel Coetzee's camp to save his life. Benjamin survives, but Danny is forced to face the colonel again after trying to avoid him. Believing Danny has returned for support, the colonel explains that they are preparing an attack on the mines and orders Danny to recover the pink diamond during the assault. Danny quietly pulls Solomon aside and tells him to wait in the back, then gives Maddie a notebook full of evidence and asks her to distract the guard while he steals weapons. It is not the goodbye Maddie hoped for, but she accepts it with a heavy heart. She calmly distracts the guard with conversation, while Danny quietly slips away with the weapons. When they meet again, both Danny and Maddie try to hide the sadness between them. She gives him her address and phone number, hoping he may return one day, but instead of kissing her or saying something emotional, Danny only shakes her hand. After their quiet goodbye, Maddie leaves on the plane while Danny and Solomon continue their difficult journey toward the diamond that has already cost so many lives. Later that night, the sound of RUF vehicles forces them to hide beside the road. In the darkness, Solomon becomes desperate and believes his son might be among the rebels passing by. Without thinking, he calls out, and when the rebels hear the sound, gunfire suddenly erupts through the trees. Danny and Solomon run through the night trying to escape until they finally lose the rebels. By morning, Danny angrily warns Solomon never to make a mistake like that again because it could have killed them both. Solomon quietly accepts the blame and they continue walking. Soon after, they arrive at a village recently destroyed by the rebels. Solomon calmly tells the survivors they are not part of the RUF and asks where the rebels went. When he learns they moved toward their camp, he immediately tries to go after them, but Danny stops him, knowing it would be suicide. The argument turns into a fight, and Danny overpowers Solomon and points a gun at him. But he cannot bring himself to pull the trigger because he understands the pain of a father trying to save his child. Danny finally lets him go and waits with him until nightfall. Under the darkness, Solomon secretly watches the rebel camp from a distance, hoping to see Dia, but when he cannot find him, they continue toward the mines. That night, while rain softly falls outside their shelter, Solomon speaks honestly and says he understands why foreigners chase diamonds, but cannot understand why his own people kill each other because of them. He speaks proudly about Dia, describing him as a smart student who could one day help heal the country, and Danny quietly promises that they will bring his son home. The next day, they finally reach the edge of the mining camp. Danny studies the area, makes a plan, and contacts Cordell to send the coordinates for an airstrike. Both men know the attack is dangerous and that Dia could be caught in it, but Solomon says nothing and only watches the camp through binoculars while searching for his son.
Coming in the morning, all right? No movement, my friend. You stay still.
Later that night, while Danny lightly sleeps, Solomon secretly leaves the shelter and walks toward the camp, unable to resist the feeling that his son is nearby. The sound of rain wakes Danny, and he follows him. From the shadows, Solomon finally sees Dia sitting with other child soldiers and playing cards. The sight shocks him, and he quietly begs his son to come with him. But Dia steps back and calls his father a traitor. Danny watches silently from hiding and waits for the right moment to act. Soon after, Solomon is captured and brought face to face with Captain Poison again. Since Dia has already been brainwashed, Captain Poison uses the boy to threaten Solomon and trap him completely. Before anything worse can happen, the sound of an Apache helicopter suddenly fills the sky, and moments later the aircraft attacks the camp with heavy fire, throwing the rebels into panic as they scatter in every direction. As the helicopter passes overhead, Danny rushes out from hiding and starts shooting his way towards Solomon. Solomon fights Captain Poison with everything he has and finally kills him by striking him with a spade. But the danger is still not over. The colonel orders the planes to return for another attack, and the ground shakes from the explosions. During the chaos, Danny runs after Dia and protects him until the private soldiers arrive and take control of the mine. Knowing the colonel may kill Solomon once he learns the truth, Danny steps in and negotiates with him. The colonel demands the diamond immediately, but Danny insists that Solomon will only speak to him. He quietly warns Solomon that if he reveals anything now, both of them will be killed. Following the plan, Solomon refuses to talk, and Danny pretends to pressure him. Believing the act, the colonel offers Danny a new deal, 60% for Danny and 40% for himself. Danny agrees, then brings Dia closer and acts as if he is handing Solomon over. Because Dia's life is in danger, Solomon finally leads them to where the diamond is hidden. He starts digging while Danny carefully watches the soldiers and thinks about escaping. Cordell notices Danny's behavior and keeps watching him closely. When Solomon suddenly shouts that he found the diamond, everyone looks toward him for a moment, and that brief distraction is enough for Danny to steal a gun and start shooting first. The plan succeeds, but Danny is shot in the stomach during the fight. After the shooting ends, Solomon suddenly finds himself facing his own son, who is pointing a gun at him. Slowly and gently, Solomon reminds Dia about their life before the war, about school mornings, and the future he once dreamed of. Little by little, Dia's anger disappears, and he lowers the gun while tears run down his face.
I am your father, who loves you.
The three escape into the mountains before more soldiers arrive. Danny takes the diamond and contacts his pilot, but with every step he grows weaker because of his wound. Solomon notices and carries Danny on his back while climbing the mountain, determined to save him, but the injury is too serious. Danny finally stops him and places the diamond back into Solomon's hands. When Solomon hesitates, Danny gives him his gun and warns him not to trust the pilot. He also gives him Maddie's address and tells him to contact her for help. Gunshots echo behind them as soldiers continue chasing them, forcing Solomon to run away with Dia while Danny stays behind, shooting at the attackers and clearing a path for them to escape.
When he can no longer stand, Danny reaches for his phone and calls Maddie. His voice is weak, but his words are clear as he tells Maddie that Solomon will carry the diamond and that she must help him finish what they started. Maddie hears the pain in his breathing and desperately asks where he is, but Danny avoids answering. He only tells her that he is glad he met her, holding on to that feeling for one final moment before the call ends.
He's bringing something with him.
Why aren't you bringing it yourself?
Months later, Solomon arrives in London and meets Mr. Simmons, the deputy of Vandecap. Simmons offers him £2 million for the diamond, but Solomon refuses and insists that the deal will only happen after his family is safely brought to London. The negotiation does not succeed immediately, but Maddie secretly records everything on camera, including Solomon, Simmons, and the moment Solomon's family finally arrives. Just as Danny planned, Maddie and Solomon continue exposing the truth with real evidence, and eventually, the illegal blood diamond trade is revealed to the world.
I'm not going to comment on some sensationalist magazine article.
They're ready for you, sir.
Later, Solomon is invited to speak at a United Nations hearing.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Solomon Vandy.
The story ends by reminding us that no matter how beautiful diamonds and valuable treasures may seem, they lose all meaning when they are stained by the suffering of innocent people, and that blood diamonds still exist today, continuing to destroy lives and families around the world.